my mouse into the right spot. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Paul Krofssik with Digital Watchdog. I'm the Director of Training or Education Programs here at Digital Watchdog, and worked for the company quite a while, 26 years, 27 years, something like that. And anyway, we will get started with what we're going over tonight. So we're going over our SiteWatch and NightWatch products, which are our network components that integrate with Spectrum, that do Digital Watchdog Spectrum, which do other things that sometimes cameras can't do, okay? And sometimes you want something that's just as easily integrated with Spectrum rather than having to do a workaround to get it work. So first things that we have is our motion detectors. So our motion detectors are either PIR or microwave and PIR, and I'll explain the differences between those. And then we have our laser motion detector, which shoots a laser beam 1,640 feet, and you only need the unit itself. There's no reflectors, there's no other things that we'll talk about. And again, fully integrated with Spectrum, and very easy to use, a web-based setup for the minor setup you got to do in there. And then we're going to talk about our different illuminators. So again, PoE powered, IP driven, integrate directly with Digital Watchdog Spectrum. And we have several different models of those, including white light and several different IR versions of that. And then the new components we've added recently, which is our speakers. So our speakers consist of a 15 watter and a 30 watter, and the 30 watter has a microphone, so you can really do two-way audio, talk back. And again, fully compatible with Spectrum IPVMS. They have alarm inputs, and again, give you that two-way audio. So you're adding you have your video component. Now you can add an audio component to a scene quite easily. But first, let's talk about motion detectors. So the Digital Watchdog motion detectors are adjustable view motion detectors, so you can match the beam they're setting off to the camera. Okay, so if you have a camera view and it goes out, and let's say its max view is 90 degrees, you can set these devices so they match it, okay? Or 87 degrees or 45 degrees. They have sort of barn doors in there, which will open and close and match your motion detection to your camera setup. It has tamper elements in it, okay? So if someone tries to pry it off the wall or damage it, you have programmable motion detection range, adjustable pan and tilt, so you can point in the right direction. And it has this little opaque cover, so it's very hard to tell which way that motion detection is actually, what direction it's actually working with. So IP and PoE powered, okay? PIR and PIR microwave detector, that's why there's two different part numbers. They also have alarm outputs, and again, the integration with Spectrum. So the one model, which is, I hate reading off part numbers, but the DTPIR IPW is our passive infrared motion sensor that detects movement of infrared light sources with wavelengths from 7 to 14 micrometers, okay? So when you see a little, it looks like a little U, that's actually micrometers. So people, human beings, emit infrared radiation from about 8 to 14 micrometers. So it's an excellent sensor for detecting human movements. Now we've got another one, motion detector, that has the PIR element into it, and that's the DT MWIPW. Again, I always have fun reading off part numbers. So this one has the PIR plus the microwaves. And so what the microwave does is it sends out a signal, okay? And when it hits an object that it knows is not supposed to be there, it'll reflect it back in what's called the echo time. And the echo time is used to calculate the distances from stationary objects detected in the zone to establish a baseline to work from when an object enters the zone that wasn't originally there. So a good combination. So very easy not to get a false alarm with these. They're very rejective of other animals and, like I said, false motion alarms. And the combination of them with Spectrum in areas where maybe you just have a camera out there, you can go in and get very good motion detection from these, okay? So we'll keep going because we're going to go into the setup of these cameras. So first off, in the setup of the cameras, you've got you can set your range, you can set your pulse count, and then you can have your detection LED turned on and off. That's over here. Okay, so you can set your range saying, okay, I'm going to go out 25 meters. Now you can change the distance unit, okay, to meters to feet, Fahrenheit to Celsius, and so on. This is just showing you meters to feet. You can do a walk test. So I'm going to explain to you what the walk test does. And you can test, of course, your digital alarm out and set them for whether they're normally open, normally closed. So I made a statement before that the motion detector is adjustable. So you take the protective cover off, and there's these little barn doors that open and close to set the range of how wide a beam is going to go out from the motion detector. And then you put the cover on. Very hard to tell what its range and what it's, I'm going to use the term looking at, what it's looking at in there. When you're doing this walk test, you turn on your detection LED. You have your little walk test remote, which is an optional item, but you can get it pretty easily. And you can walk around and say, okay, I'm pretty much at the edge of the camera view. I want to know if there's a person in the same camera view as the motion detector. You can now go out and test, make sure it's set up the way you like it without having to run out, run back, run out, run back. You can find out very easily what your setup is. So again, use the web page. You have your walk test and your little remote tester. So again, we've got our detection LED on to let us know. Again, we can change today I'm having trouble speaking. You can change it from imperial or to metric and vice versa, depending on what you're most comfortable with. We then go into, of course, the other part of the settings page, which is your network settings. So over here, we can give a network settings. We can set up a host name. You can have it go and do DNS, but it's something like this isn't necessary. If the network requires certificates for TLS and that type of thing, so they'll communicate properly across the network, we have the ability to add that into it also. And so again, very easy and simple to set up. Now, very easy to add an event. You add an event at the camera's webpage, and you do PIR detection, which is probably the most common, but there's also the one-shot, PIR one-shot. And what that is motion detection, okay? There's a motion detection. And as long as that motion's going on, okay, it's not going to send another motion event until that motion ends and a new one begins. Okay, so that's why it's called PIR one-shot. All right. So this way, if there is something hinky going on, you're less likely to get false alarms and you can react to it better. Now, you've got your events. You can add events and then test each event. So you can say, okay, I want to trigger the alarm out triggers, and whatever that alarm out is done to is done. I want to send a test event to Spectrum VMS. I can send it to the Spectrum VMS also. This is compatible with other systems and VMSs also, but as you can see, fully integrated with Spectrum, very easy to use. In conclusion, detection range is about 30 meters for both models. They both have 2 alarm outputs. Okay, so you have your alarm outputs. So you could have an event go to Spectrum and then an event maybe to go directly to some other device. Okay, maybe a siren, maybe something else to trigger another type of event at the same time. All right. And so again, we have 2 models. One is passive infrared, detects the movement of infrared light sources. And the other one is dual passive infrared plus microwave. Okay. So again, depending on what you want to accomplish and where you want to accomplish it. And then one of our, believe it or not, because of it's a little more sophisticated, but a very popular model we're selling is this guy, which is the laser detector. Now, this seems specialized, but we have tons of sales into different markets, including marinas. As you'll see, we've got pictures from marinas, but there's golf courses, people with large estates, people just monitoring a fence line at a large facility. This thing's great because it goes out to 500 meters or 1,640 feet. It's PoE and IP. It only requires the one device here. This box here doesn't require anything at the other end for it to hit. And it has tons of features. high precision, again, 1600 foot. There are 20 fully adaptable alarm zones. Okay, so you can meet any sort of situations you want. If there's some real heavy weather, whether hard rain or snow or something like that, it'll notify the administrator that there's something going on. And again, a direct integration with Spectrum. So how the alarm zones work, you set them up in the web browser, you give them a distance. So you can have zone A overlap, and maybe there's a little more sensitive zone with zone B and C down here. And you got zone D is by itself, and you really don't care what goes on in here. But you can have a main zone and then overlapping zones that are higher or lower sensitivity, or just a bunch of separate zones, which then sends a signal to Spectrum, and then Spectrum will fire a PTZ camera to move around or whatever, which I'm going to show you a couple of different short videos of how it works. So we've got our little view of a marina here. You set up your fence line with your device. All right, that triggers across. You've got your different zones. And then what will happen is you can tell, depending on the device and the rules you set up in Spectrum, to send a PTZ camera on a tour, to have the PTZ camera go to a certain preset, turn on some lights. And then this is just like a short demonstration of it. You're going to have your a little boat come in. My boat is my boat is more like that size. If I had one anymore, it was more like that size, tiny. Anyway, so the boat comes in, it triggers that, turns on some lights, and you got these cameras watching it, see if it bumps into another boat, or maybe it's even not supposed to be there, and you have someone monitoring this and things like that. So here's actually a live view. So we have our laser detection across this small marina here, and it's playing back in Spectrum, and we have 3 zones set up. There's a 10-foot zone, there's a 10 to 40, and I think there's like a 160. So someone violated that zone, and there was a preset in there that says, I'm going to go look at whoever is down the zone. Maybe they're down there taking their boat out. It's perfectly okay, but at least you have a video of it. Now, this is, of course, fast forwarded, so it's running 16x. So we can watch the waves wiggle in the water there. And now we're going to go to our 10 to 40 foot, and then this will be just a boat going by. Okay, so violated the laser, camera swung over, and then the person turns their boat around, hopefully safely. And then they go in, and then they'll violate the other zone, which will then force the camera to do it. Now, the camera, because it took so long for him to come around, will actually go back to a preset and then go over there. So if you watch, it's taken so long for it to go across that it actually went home, and then it came back and said, hey, wait a second, someone's in now zone 3, the 40 to 100 meters. So you can have this thing to react to a bunch of different situations. Again, these wide open spaces there. Now, the nice thing about this is in its web interface are all the tools for you to make sure everything's okay at the other end. You have your distance plot. If there's something in the distance in the way, it will actually tell you here. You'll get little lines up here saying there's a problem. Okay. And so you can actually figure out a lot of stuff right from here. There's the laser alignment. You click that once when you have it all set up and level. And again, very easy to set up. And then we got our enable or disable alarm zone, send an alert to Spectrum. We also support sending signals to other cameras and other VMSs in here. You can have it send its little heartbeat timer out saying, hey, everything's okay. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. All of a sudden it stops. That can create an event also. 1600 foot, 1640 foot, or 500 meters, and the 2 alarm outs. So the next devices we're going to talk about are the Night Watch products, which are digital Watchdog illuminators. We have the IR versions. So the IR versions can be up to 614 feet. No light pollution from these because it's infrared. It's beyond just about where we can see it. PoE and IP, which means you don't need an electrician. I'll probably say that 3 times, but don't need an electrician to set these up for you because you're just running a cable to it. An interchangeable lens pack, which we'll talk about, and very high powered, very high quality LEDs built into it. And I believe these are manufactured over in the UK. So we're NDAA, TAA compliant, no problems there. So we have two IR models. Excuse me. 850 nanometers. The device will grow a little, glow a little, and it'll do up to 1,614 feet. It's power over Ethernet. Okay. Again, we're gonna see the web interface very shortly. And again, it comes with an interchangeable lens pack, and I'll describe how those work. All right. So we have two models of IR. One is the 940 nanometer, which is invisible, and the 850 nanometer, which is again, the device will glow red. And then we have our white light illuminator. So the white light will carry about 374 feet. Again, a visible deterrent, has built-in strobe, so you can tell the light to strobe. You can raise and lower the power of the light. IK09 impact resistance, again, PoE and IP, and another one with the interchangeable lens pack. So then we come to our other models, which are the hybrid models. Okay, so these are both IR and white light. And so we have an 850 nanometer and white light illuminator. They're a little taller. They're also, you can use the IR first, and then if let's say there's motion detection, then the IR would turn off, and then you could have the white light turn on. There's a lot of different options with these, of course, because then you can have the sort of the surprise, the deterrence of a white light turning on once it detects motion. All right. There are some options also for our products, including the ability to hang more than one off a bracket. We can go up to a total of 3 on one bracket. So especially if you're using with a multi-imager camera, trying to get a super wide view, these 270-degree wide views, you can put multiple ones on one bracket in conjunction with the camera to give you the illumination you need out there. So on the back of these, you've got a reset thing behind a grommet. You've got the LED kind of shows what's going on with it. All right. And you have a pressure release valve. So it's sitting out there in the sun. It's not going to sit there and heat up and have anything build up inside of it. It's able to release any pressure that might happen from that. And it comes with an IP68 Ethernet cable. So we're going to watch a little video, just me opening up one of these. Tried to shorten it as much as possible, but there is the brackets. There's the lenses down here on the bottom. There's, of course, the device itself. So I'm going to pause this because although my hand is very handsome. So if you use this, you've got your 10 degrees normally. So it's giving you the narrowest possible band. Okay. And then it comes with a 30-degree one, which gives you, of course, a wider one, a 60, and then a 95. You can order these other ones special, but these are the ones that come in the box. All right. And so those spread the light out, or you can have it so it's narrow, tighter, and the light goes out further. So again, I think it's really neat, very, very easy to understand. When I've set them up before, I have used mostly the 60. It seems to give you a decent coverage, although if you're using one of our 180 cameras or something like that, you may want to opt for the 95 and maybe have 2 of them so they're off kilter with each other, so you can have the coverage based on whatever the camera is doing. So again, the same type of setup as the other devices I showed you. You can add an action. You can do intruder, low light detection, and all that means is the IRs will turn on automatically at whatever power it's preset at. So if you have a preset at 50% power, when it gets dark, the light's going to turn on. Okay. And then if there's something else happening, you can have an event that then maybe will cause that light to strobe at 80% power or 100% power. And this thing is quite bright. Anytime we've had it in any of our booths, we've actually had to point it at the sky, because even at low power, the light is very bright. They're like 25% power. You're like, flip that thing up. These things are brighter, I think, than the package. I'm not saying they're out of spec to the package, but they are surprisingly bright, to put it mildly. So again, we can add events. We also have our LED settings, so we can preset standard power, energy saving power, boost power, We, of course, can go in and look at our, matter of fact, I'm going to scroll this back just a hair if you guys don't mind, because we have our network settings again. So we can give this thing a regular name like warehouse extra light, whatever we want to call it. These things have no reason to call to the internet. That's why you can just turn the DNS on and off. All right. If we scroll back even more, we have the ability to go and turn on boost mode, strobe mode, and test all these modes, including triggering the output. All right. You can go and have however long you want the boost to do it, which means it'll give you extra power, but of course it'll be, you're then possibly heating up the LEDs. So you don't want to run the boost mode for very long, but certainly standard power 100%. And then you can run boost mode at 50, 60% and have that be your strobe power. Set your minimum strobe timeout. Okay, you may want that thing strobe for 2 minutes. So put 120 seconds in there. Okay. And then, like I said, you got manual control here just to test everything and make sure you've got your settings the way you want it. So we go in, we add an event, give it a name. So we say, okay, we want a low light. We want tampering. If the temperature gets too high, you want to set a delay. And then we trigger an action, and then our action can be DW Spectrum VMS. And then standard port is 7001, so it has to be available to it. You put in your username and password. You can give it a caption and description if you want to have that information sent into Spectrum, because then you can search by that information. And then you can click test to make sure it comes up. And again, the same thing, we can put our certificates in there, HTTPS, we have our IPs. Again, if you want to have the DNS on and off, it's up to you. And you can run the network settings from here. I would make sure to run the same settings as the camera. It's on the same as the camera network, so it's easy to route the data to it. But you may run into a situation where it's not possible. Just make sure you can, of course, ping it from the Spectrum server in order to know that data can arrive there. And again, we have our different settings for our power, boost, timeout setup. And then we can go in here with our different events, including low light detection, our LED settings, adjust our power. Again, just these little sliders, which is nice. And again, if you get one of these and practice with one of these just for a little bit, you'll see you put it either on the bench or you hang it out a window, especially in the evening, you'll see how wide and how narrow you can make these and how the strobe works and all that. So it's an interesting thing to use. And like I said, you don't need an electrician to make these things work. The next is the lens diffuser kits. So we have all these available. Like the 10 to 20 doesn't make much of a difference. So that's like a special order along with the 80. But like I said, the 30 and the 60, I've used the 60 the most. But now that cameras are getting higher resolution and higher resolution and higher quality and all that stuff, and we have cameras that are single imager, 180 degrees. So again, you may want to use the wider diffuser lens. So here's a short video that just shows there's the camera just turned on full power. And then let's go to the video here. And again, this is out of Spectrum. And all we're doing is turning on the light. And that's set at wide. And then we can trigger the strobe, lower the power, trigger the strobe. For those of you that are strobe sensitive, be careful because this thing does actually strobe here. There we go. I'm sure my neighbors love that. And so on. So you can, again, get the feel for this thing and have Spectrum do it. Also, Spectrum has built into it, which would appear here, soft triggers, okay? And you can have those run manually from the view. So let's say, again, you have the motion detector there, and you just want to flip on a light manually and have it flip on the light, or have the camera talk to Spectrum and Spectrum turns on the light. So again, very, very easy to use. So we have tech documents online, okay? This is the URL for it. I know it's too long. I don't expect you guys to write it down, but you can put this information in the camera, set a schedule, and then you can force in Spectrum, and can force the illuminator to do whatever you want it to do. Now, here's the other thing is we have our knowledge base on our website, But we also have a little guy called Dwayne. Okay. So it's our digital watchdog AI helper. And so I can go in and type Night Watch up here, and it goes DW Spectrum using a Night Watch illuminator, and it'll give you the information you need to make it work. Or you can ask Dwayne, and it basically takes you to the same spot. So you're on the website, you're saying, hey, Paul's talking about that Dwayne thing. What is that? You click the little, looks like a little down arrow down here, and gives you a little bit of an explanation, and then it gives you a link right to the same document. So there's a couple ways you can find it very easily on our website. And so again, when you're working in Spectrum, you can go into Spectrum and you can go into the camera rules. And so Spectrum does an if then. Okay, so if this happens, analytic event, I've done a couple of webinars on analytics, then you can make other things happen. It's very simple, very intuitive to set up. So we're going to go to analytic event. We're going to choose our camera. We're going to choose our type of event, line cross or intrusion or whatever. If there is a caption in there, we can put the caption in it. All right. And then we can say, what do we want it to do? We want to do an HTTP request. So we want to talk to one of our illuminators. We put in this thing. It's going to put us onto timeouts, 1,000 seconds, 80% power. So it's just going to turn on the light when we send the command out. So you can have soft triggers, which again are the triggers here, to make the illuminator do what you want to do. You can force it manually to strobe or automatically to strobe with analytic events or motion detection and things like that. So again, very good, easy integration with them. And of course, you can set these rules up with the calendar scheduler here. So this way, let's say there's a motion event, but it's middle of the day and you don't want the thing to strobe at people. You can set up a very complicated set of rules. So this way the system will react and do what you want to do through the event rules engine. And whether it's motion detection, video analytics, you can set schedules and all those different things. In a little bit of a summary, good integration with Spectrum. We have, of course, the detectors and laser sensors can send PTs. You can force pop-up streaming video at a central station. You can turn on and off the illuminators on all these different events, whether it's generic event, analytic event, soft trigger, motion detection. You can daisy chain all these on the same bracket to give you that really wide view. So again, you got a 180-degree view, a multi-imager or a single imager with a multi view. You can protect the perimeter using the motion detection or the laser detection. So again, these things are all very, very a huge part of a good system. And then one of the final pieces is, of course, the speakers, because now you also want to be able to send some audio down there. So maybe you have a flashing light, okay, and you can send down pre-recorded or live messages. And you can do this from your phone or from a workstation that has a microphone in it. And again, PoE comes with the brackets, they're IP67, ONVIF conformant. And that was the 15 watt, and the 30 watt has the microphone built in. So you can actually do two-way audio with them. And again, compatible with, of course, Spectrum, which I'll show you a little bit of that. Also, though, these things can talk to IPVX systems, which is /IP phones via SIP. So they can actually be used by the end user to also do announcements, like someone can hit a certain sequence of buttons on their phone and say, hey, Carl, you got to call on line 3, and make the announcement throughout the facility, throughout their IP speakers. You can also schedule audio alerts, maybe even have some background music playing through them. Not what I would do. These also have an HTTP API for other devices to use them. They're fully ONVIF conformant. They're class 3 PoE and have a 2-year warranty on. Now, what's neat about these is you got to keep an eye out here, because this video plays automatically, is when it detects the camera, okay, when you plug it in, it's going to detect the camera. And then worst case scenario is you got to put in password. Ask you to put in the password, but it'll detect the camera. Now you don't need to record, so there's no licenses involved in this. And if you look, there's a little mini mic icon right down here. So you can immediately start talking through that mic. Okay. Now, the mics that are built into, let's say, your laptop, and a lot of times you get a cheap little mic with your PC, go out and spend between 30 and $100 and get a good USB mic, and your uh, audio will sound better and you'll have more control over that. So Spectrum will auto detect it. It's, again, it should be on the same network, much like the Illuminator and the other stuff we talked about, and is routable, which means you can ping it. Default username and password are, but the password, it does force you to change the password during the initial install. And so I have the audio turned off on this because came through just too loud on Zoom. But you can map the audio from the camera to a speaker, so you can actually have the audio mapped from on a couple of different cameras that might be looking over the same spot that is set up. You can, again, talk through directly from your PC down to the person. And if you have the SP30, you can hear them talking back at you. Hopefully they're talking nice to you. So there's, again, no need for a license to use the speaker. There's no need for a license to use the illuminator. There's no need for a license to use the motion detectors. So just keep that in mind. You don't need to have that little red dot next to it, because we're not really recording that information because there's no video there. Easy setup, so you can set it up from inside Spectrum, just like the other devices. You can go in and go to your different status areas. If you're using the SIP part of it, SIP, you can adjust the audio. HTTP commands we're going to talk about. If you want to use the firewall settings, there's actual firewall settings on this unit. Let me see if I can go forward. There we go. Gives you a little better view of it. It's just your basic info of the system. We can go in, of course, and set up our IP address, subnet mask, gateway. If we're using HTTP and HTTPS, you can pull down and say, I only want to use HTTPS. Default ports are these. You can make the ports different. You just have to go above 1025 if you want to use custom ports. Again, SIP account stuff. If you're going to, again, someone may request it. It does have the ability to do it, to be used on an IP phone system as a speaker. You have your audio settings. So again, I would just leave these all on, okay? Because you might put in a file either into the camera or from Spectrum that is this guy here, the audio codec, but maybe most of the time you're using G722 audio codec. These are just different audio codecs that you can have either from a file created in Windows versus a file created on an Apple computer, because you're using a different program and they might encode it differently. You have your volume control, okay? You can have your auto amp off, which means after a certain period of time, I think it's 30 seconds, it then powers off the amp, all right? And then, of course, it's got to power up the amp. And then jitter buffer is a way for it to buffer some of the data. So if you are doing talk down, there's a slight delay. 300 milliseconds is like a third of a second. Your voice will come out better, okay? And then you've got noise reduction for background noise and stuff like that. So you can do a lot of stuff to adjust it to make it work the best, okay? And again, this is just a reiteration of what I said. Then you can go into the camera and you have some built-in ones that are, I don't know, cheesy sounds, but you can upload your own files into it. You choose a file, put it up here. Now this one will play through the sound card, not the speaker. And then this one, you click this one, right, will play through the speaker. So that'd be the only thing. It would be like maybe play through speaker, some other, a little more descriptive. But that one will play through the sound card. You just test it, make sure, yeah, okay, that's the guy's saying it the right way. Now you can play it through the speaker to test it, make sure it's loud enough. But the same thing with your user files. If you have your user files, it's going to have the same thing. Do I play it through the PC, or am I going to play it through the speaker, or am I going to delete it? But you can upload a bunch of files to it and do it that way, or you can use Spectrum to manage it. So I just want to reiterate that You don't really need to upload files to it because you can put that same information into Spectrum. So again, I'm not going to play the audio. It comes out very strange through Spectrum, but it's like a little bell. I don't know if you guys can hear it. I doubt you guys can hear it. Maybe you guys can hear that one. So now the next section is the HTTP commands. Now here's something cool. It'll actually give you the examples from the actual IP of the device. So if you change the IP to 10.0.0.0.5, let's just say, it'll show you this. So if you want to send a specific HTTP command to this, stop, you want to send a stop action to it, you can send that stop command via our HTTP request setup. But it gives you the actual string with the actual IP address of the unit itself. So making it very easy to set up. You just cut and paste the information in there. So again, we go over here, we want to send a specific command. So in this case, we've got the bicycle bell already in there, right? So we're going to go play a sound, play this, bicycle bell, hit apply. You click test, and away you go. Because that's the sounds that are built into Spectrum, okay? Or you can also upload other sounds into Spectrum. That's under manage. And it'll say, do you want to put an MP, I think it's MP3 and a couple of other ones it supports. So you can do that also. And I find that easier to manage, but that's really up to the individual person. So again, you can go in, add a file, add a schedule, and then you can have that thing so it only play at a certain time through it. And then again, this will show you the schedule here. So you can have the schedule in here. But again, because all this is already in Spectrum, you don't really have to learn this unless you're using this as a standalone setup. So you've got our analytic camera and just this, then you can set up the schedule and all that other stuff with it. So it's a way to do it as a standalone setup. This also has RTP multi-tab in it. So allows a sender to transmit packets to a group of hosts. So this way it'll just send out, let's say at 5 of these speakers, you could have the announcement come out of all 5 speakers or just one of them because of the way the host name is configured. You also has a firewall in it. So this way, if you're worried about someone rogue on the network going in there and, I don't know, making crazy noises come out of the speaker, you can set it so it's only talking to the server and maybe one other device on the network. So it has something so people can't pull any shenanigans. We do make upgrades to all our gear from time to time. So you can do the firmware update. You can reset it back to factory and take any junk that's in there out of there and then do it again. So it does allow you, though, to do that. Let's see. Casey's asking, the motion detectors be set to trigger pre-recorded messages on the speaker? Absolutely, yes. Okay. And I did cover it, and I'm recording this so you can play it back, but no problem. Thank you. All right. So we go over here, and we're now going to add one of the speakers in. So we're going to add device to Spectrum. So this is a manual way. So this one may not be a fully routable device where Spectrum can detect it. It might be through a VPN or something like that. And so all we're doing is going to tell it to search. We know the username and password, and we know the IP address. It's going to search, find the SP15, and now the system can add it. So you can manually add it, okay, if it's routable, meaning you can ping it, but it can't be auto-discovered maybe because of some trick with the firewall. So now you can put it in there and drag the device over, already talk through it. Again, use your mobile phone using the Spectrum app. And away you go. And again, I'd have the audio play, but Zoom's been doing something weird with audio. I was trying to make it so it sounded good, but I'm enabling two-way audio. I'm going to trigger this because maybe I have a device that has a microphone in it, like a camera. Okay. And I'm going to tell it to stream the audio. I can have multiple cameras tied to that device, and so on. So again, Spectrum makes stuff very intuitive to set up. It's very easy to set up. And so we can tell who has access to it, who it's going to play a sound for. You can have the users restricted. Again, you can have your rules engine. Again, tell it to repeat a sound. There's baked in sounds in here, or you can click manage and log in your own audio to it. And it'll work the same in Linux and in Windows. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. This is a Linux box. We've got our audio settings. We can go to settings and just make sure our internet and all our other stuff is working properly, and the SP will work just fine because Spectrum is really controlling it. And this is the same thing discussing Spectrum and Linux. We're using the SiteWatch speakers for audio deterrence. Okay. Uh, very good mic built into the SP30. Good speaker with very low audio distortion. Okay. And you can react in real time to different events. All right. So we've got our speakers, we've got our motion detectors, and we've got our illuminators to add to your digital Watchdog Spectrum system. So speaking of Spectrum, I want you guys to go look at whatever servers you may still be connected to with other people. And I want to encourage you to upgrade the system so it's running 5.1.4. And we have a build number there, 38659. Get all your customers up to there. There are still customers on 4.0, 4.1, 4.2, and we want them to get them up at least to some version of 5.1. Okay. As we know, I'm going to say the internet, but people are requiring the internet to be more secure and have more features and functionality in it, including talking to the cloud. And the best way to do this is to get them up to 5.1.3, 5.1.4. I'm saying 5.1.4 because it has some enhancements as far as speed of connection and things like that in it, how it handles large systems and stuff like that. So by all means, go look at your customer base and have them update to 5.1.4. All right. And it's very easy. You can bring a USB to the site. That's where you go to this one, DW Spectrum.digital-watchdog.com, downloads Windows. It takes you to the web page, or you can do the in-client upgrade where you go and says, okay, this one's 5.1.3, so don't need to do it, but I'm going to update it anyway. So I put in this build number and the password, and then it'll say downloaded, it'll install, and then the next time you log in with the client, it'll then update the client. But 5.1.3 and 5.1.4 client are actually the same. Just even though it's 5.1.3 in the client, it has the green on it. It's not yellow saying it's out. So it's a very easy way to do it. The only thing that I would recommend you do, because in order to do this, you got to have admin access, is you can go into the web page of the Spectrum server, and we have documents to show you how to do it. If you want to send me an email, I will send you that stuff, and force the media server to do a restart, which is a very small program. It starts and stops for a couple seconds just to make sure the server is not holding on to some old files, and then run the update. So next thing I want to talk about are website resources, including our storage calculator. All right. So this, again, you're going out designing a system. You want to know a little bit about the system. We have our storage calculator. It's, again, https ipcalculator.digital-watchdog.com. And we will go to the, come on, go to the next page. There we go. This is a video, and this will show you, I've already have some stuff preloaded, front door, warehouse, perimeter. All right. And I'm going to add another camera. All right. Give the camera a name. So we got like front office. All right. Put a couple cameras up there. We're then going to choose our different models. All right. So I've got a, go down to 4 or 5 megapixel, depending on the thing. I've got domes, we've got bullets, we have our whole product lineup in here. You can choose whichever one you want. I'm just going through and showing you the different ones. So this is me going like, which one do I want to choose? Do I want an MP? Do I want an MV? Make up your mind, Paul. There we go. And then I'm going to choose the codec. Quality level I'll leave on high. Frames per second, and most people tell me, I do the training classes, they do it around 15 frames a second. Again, motion, 40% motion on a front door, might be a little less, might be a little more. 30 days worth of recording, we'll leave it at that. Okay. And then we'll go forward more. And we'll, oh, sorry, got to go forward 1, 2. There we go. And then we're going to choose the next cameras. And so we're going to choose a V-class camera. Or are we choosing a 4K? What are you doing, Paul? There we go. V-class camera. It'll then calculate it out. We got 10 of those. 15 frames a second. Choose your motion. So again, it's warehouse. Might be a little busier than the front. Again, a lot of this is just guessing. Most places where they do these motion studies are, you think, oh, it's super busy. They're like 10% motion. So this is a bit of guessing, but now we're up to 7.7 terabytes of storage. So we've got everything chosen. And now we're going to go and figure out what we want. Now, I just wanted an NVR, very simple. I didn't need anything special, didn't need hot swap, didn't need RAID. It doesn't require a rack mount, but I did want a little extra storage. See, it gives me the minimum of 24 terabytes. All right. And you can see we've got a bunch of choices that give me a single server. All right. I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to go this route. So then I'm going to click next up here. That's right, Paul, make up your mind. There you go. Click next up here. And then see, I only get a little bit left over here, 0.75. And so as I'm looking around, I'm like, okay, how come it repeated again? Thank you, Microsoft. Here we go. All right. So we've got our different options, and I wanted a little more headroom just in case they decide to add cameras. All right. And it gives you the basics. So now we've got our cameras, our frame rate, our server, our data rate. Okay. We've got 32 terabytes of storage. We've got about 8 left over, so it's going to use just under 24 terabytes of storage. All right. Then we click Save Project. All right. Come here, you. And then you can go in and type the project name. All right. Address. Some other bit of information. And if you want to send the email to someone else or some other email address. And then see, it saves it. It gives you this code so you can always retrieve it later. All right. If you wanted to. There we go. So this shows you, whoops, I want to go back one. Sorry, guys. So right here, we've got our PDF version you can download, or you can grab the Excel version that you can open up and have the Excel version if you want to make some changes, put some notes in there, stuff like that. PDFs are obviously harder to do that on, but now you've got like this sort of basic info. Hey, I also need brackets. I also need this, but now at least, hey, I'm going to use 23.25 terabytes of storage. I've got 32 terabytes of storage. So that's a really good tool for you. You guys post-call can mess with it. Like I said, send me an email if you got any questions about it. And then I want to talk about training. So we have live trainings coming up in Salt Lake City next week, right? Today is the 20th. Tampa, Florida, and Woburn, Mass on July 10th, July 18th, Baltimore, Maryland. We're adding some to Texas in August, along with a couple of, at least one in the West Coast. I can't remember where it is. And November is Minneapolis. Then we're working on a bunch for October. So this is the one spot you can go look. So you look at university and you go to live trainings. Now, we also, though, have our in-person trainings, and we have in-person trainings, which are, I believe most of them are about 2 hours. Depending on the location, we can bring lunch or case of these. Some of these are at ADI Expo, but we're doing live trainings. You can go in. I think these are in Canada, maybe Calgary or something like that. But you can go to the website, click June, and then look at these different dates and say, okay, is there something near me? And you can look at July and August and things like that. So we're scheduling these out. So if you guys want more training about our AI and Spectrum and our accessory stuff, we're going to be there doing trainings locally at the different distributors. So I want to thank everybody for